Story 1. My dad sat my sister and me down to let us know he and my mom were getting a divorce. A few moments later, a man I had never seen before came up the driveway on his motorcycle and picked up my mom to go drinking. This sent my dad into a rage, and he started screaming and throwing things across the room. After his tantrum, he stormed off to the basement to get drunk. Meanwhile, my sisters and I sat there in tears, wondering what the future would hold. Story 2. I worked in a chiropractor's office. The manager would speak negatively about previous employees. When I became seriously ill and was hospitalized, the chiropractor posted my job opening on Indeed. The office manager said I overreacted to the chiropractor posting my job on Indeed. I left because it was a strange environment. Story 3. I worked a job that kept me away for weeks and months at a time. I was married to a woman who pretty much wiped out my savings, maxed out our credit cards, and betrayed all my friends and her own brother while I was gone. All while telling everyone I was a drug addict who abused her. Does that count? I had a job where I was drug tested monthly, and the most violent thing I did to her was send an angry text. Admittedly, she was schizophrenic, but... Story 4. I was in a relationship where I would donate my plasma to give my boyfriend money to buy weed. He never had a job and just relied on me. Donating plasma always affected my body pretty badly. One time I threw up while donating. I look back on that now and cannot understand what I was thinking. I am so happy that I am a much smarter person now and understand my true worth. Story 5. I was accused of being a pervert and a creep at the mall by a woman I had never seen before, and the police even got involved. I went to the mall to buy my wife an anniversary present and went to a jewelry store. When I entered, I was looking around when a woman suddenly said, "Oh my God, you are such a creep. Why are you following me around?" I looked around for whoever she was talking about, then looked back at her and said, "You mean me?" She insisted I had been following her for the past hour. I replied, "No, I literally just got here to the mall. I'm on my lunch break." She insisted the store call the police because I was harassing and stalking her. She kept calling me a creep and making weird faces. I was dumbfounded because I never even looked her way until she spoke. When the police arrived, she claimed I had touched her inappropriately when I passed her in the store. The situation escalated, and I became concerned that the woman might have mental issues. I was also worried because some people seemed to believe her, which seemed unreasonable. The police checked the store cameras, which showed I was nowhere near her at any time. Not only did I never touch her, but I never even looked at her. I also had the Life 360 app, which tracks trips and times of arrival and departure. I showed this to the police to refute her claim that I had been following her for hours. I told them, either she is confusing me with someone else here in the mall, or she is off her medications. Either way, I am innocent. The police concluded I was innocent, and I left, but she continued yelling from a distance about me being a pervert and a creep, with people turning around and looking. I have not returned to that mall since. I have never seen such toxic behavior, with false accusations and continued harassment. To this day, I do not understand the motivation behind trying to ruin an innocent man's life. Story 6. Caught her cheating on her second cell phone, which I recently bought her a new one to replace, while I skipped time with my friends to take her to the hospital even though she was not sick. After that, I drove her home. While driving, she asked if we were staying together. I said I did not know. Then she tried to throw herself out of the moving car. My blood boiled. Story 7. A covert narcissist in my wife's friend group has chosen me as her target because I am not easy to manipulate. Story 8. Narcissistic sociopath. The best way to find out if someone is one, they will try their very best to control you and say things like, "I am just looking out for you." They will constantly guilt trip you. When they realize that does not work anymore and they cannot control you because you are catching on, they will try to control the way other people see you. Story 9. My mom kept telling me, "What are people going to think of you?" I was a teenager who wanted to explore who I was. Not even that extreme, to be honest. I didn't fit her idea of wanting to dress up all girly. I always preferred comfort or streetwear. Over 10 years later, I now have severe anxiety. Every time I pass someone on the street, I think they are judging me. Story 10. Being with my ex-wife. I have an inoperable brain tumor. When I said, I want a divorce, she said, thank you. I didn't want to be the person who left a man with cancer. Story 11. My mother and my sister's behavior at my wedding was bad enough that I eventually went fully no contact with them. Story 12. Went on a trip with my best friend and a friend of hers. The third person was unpleasant the whole time in passive-aggressive ways. The worst was when she and my friend went off without me to one of the places I had specifically said I wanted to go. Story 13. Living with a narcissistic mother. I am getting kicked out by her, but I am choosing to see this as a blessing in disguise. Good riddance. Story 14. Being physically bullied from 2009 to 2012 was far worse than anything modern cyberbullying can do, except for leaked nude photos. Story 15. I had an ex who said I gave her the feeling of disgust when I cried over finding my puppy's broken little body next to the road. Story 16. I had a manager create such a toxic work environment that I had to be placed on a psychiatric hold because I had a very serious plan to end my life. Story 17. When I was a bartender, I worked with the same person, the bar manager, behind the bar for 5 years. Slowly over the years, he became more greedy and demanding of my performance, but hid it under the guise of, I just wasn't doing enough for the team. I was going to school at the same time, so I was juggling two very demanding environments. I ended up realizing that I was actually doing most of the hard labor and was so focused on making my bar manager happy that I hadn't realized how much he was taking advantage of me. I later realized he was stealing money from me and from the restaurant. I estimated how much he had taken from both the restaurant and me over the years and figured it was around $25,000. I caught him stealing about $1,000 in a week, and that's when I woke up and called him out on it. I ended up quitting because he went on a tirade to get me fired once he realized I was onto him. I don't wish him ill, but I don't wish him well either. Story 18. I was screamed at for an hour and then fired by my female chief financial officer for not being friendlier and more talkative, even though the entire company knew I was being sexually harassed by a 15-year-old boy, literally a decade younger than me at the time, who worked in the factory. They all made jokes about it. I was told I had a horrible personality, and because of that, I couldn't be trusted. I refused to spend breaks in the break room with everyone because that child would wait for me to try to get my number, ask me out, or just weirdly stare at me from the corner while I tried to eat my lunch in peace. We were not allowed to eat at our desks, and it got to the point where I just wouldn't eat all day to avoid him. Everything was blamed on me, and I was told I made him and everyone else uncomfortable with my quietness. After that, I worked for a man who owned an insurance office and threatened me multiple times a week, told clients I was stupid, forced me to complete his continuing education for him. I reported him, and I am happy to say all of his licenses were revoked, and he is permanently banned from the insurance profession. He also told me my fiancé was gay because he had cats and a sedan, said he would fire me if I got pregnant, told me I was living in sin, and claimed he knew what my fiancé and I were up to because we lived in a one-bedroom apartment. People are insane. Story 19. Working in my most recent former job involved toxic human resources, uncooperative management, and gossipy coworkers. Story 20. My parents are already toxic. They gaslight me to make me feel guilty when I refuse to do something for them because I want to focus on myself. I have to live with them until I can stand on my own. Story 21. I have been alone my whole life. In my 30s, the first 2 women I ever tried to start a relationship with both almost destroyed my reputation. Now I have trust issues I will likely never recover from. I miss my dog so much. Rest in peace, buddy. Story 22. I am experiencing real acetaminophen poisoning right now. It makes nausea and pain a reality. I took too much for many days in a row. Story 23. I tried to help my mother out of a toxic relationship, only to have her insult my wife and me. We stopped talking to her after that. Story 24. Unfortunately, I had to grow up in a family with a narcissistic mother who resented the love my father had for me and older sisters who were just like my mother. My mother encouraged them to bully me and make fun of me. Now in my 50s, I have never been able to have girlfriends because of them. Story 25. I have written about this before, so if it sounds familiar, that is why. A female colleague became obsessed with me in the workplace. It was ridiculous, and I asked for help from management, but they did not take me seriously. I am female as well, and I feel that if the person had been male, they would have been fired immediately. It was an awful and stressful time. Someone even told me that she was just being playful. I will spare you the details of everything she did. It is 15 years later, and I still occasionally receive odd texts, emails, or messages from her, even though I have her blocked on all platforms. She took some of my life away for a while. Story 26. Toxic positivity is discussed frequently on Reddit, often in various communities. Story 27. This was not the worst part of the relationship by far, but definitely one of the craziest stories from it. My ex liked to choke me simply because she found it funny, even after I repeatedly begged her not to because she was purposefully hurting me while doing it. Once, she did it so hard that my eyes rolled back in my head, my vision blacked out for a second, and a demonic-sounding noise came out of me. It scared me so much I started crying, and she promised she would never do it again while apologizing over and over. She did it again. Story 28. A past relationship involved someone faking a pregnancy and miscarriage of my supposed child because she was bored. That situation really messed with my head. Story 29. A friend of mine completely betrayed me, and I ended our friendship, telling her not to contact me again. A few days later, she sent a long message in which she failed to mention her own actions and accused me of things I never did. The message said, "I have been thinking a lot about our friendship, and I need to take a step back because of how toxic you are," followed by several false accusations about me. I realized then that she intended to screenshot the conversation and share it with others to make it seem like I was the one who betrayed her. After that, I had to do a lot of damage control and clarify what really happened so people would know the truth. Story 30. I was kicked out of my university study group without warning because we were not on the same wavelength, and it was not about me socially. Then the larger friend group, which included me and my study group, stopped inviting me to events. They gave me until the end of the week to find someone else to study with. Also, talking negatively behind others' backs is common. You might think people grow out of it, but some do not. Story 31. Lavori con capi e colleghi arroganti. Il corso formativo, programmato malissimo in base a giorni e orari, si è svolto per mesi con un compagno di corso molto pesante, uno di quelli che sanno tutto, fanno tutto e lavorano solo loro, e che hanno sempre i problemi. Monologhi di ore in cui nessuno prestava attenzione mentre raccontava la sua vita. Sono situazioni che sei obbligato a vivere, ma che aspetti con ansia che finiscano perché ti svuotano di ogni energia. Story 32. Lavori con capi e colleghi arroganti. Corso formativo lungo mesi, programmato malissimo in fatto di giorni e orari, con un compagno di corso molto pesante, uno di quelli che sanno tutto, fanno tutto, lavorano solo loro e hanno solo loro i problemi. Monologhi di ore in cui nessuno lo ascoltava, raccontando la sua vita. Situazioni che sei obbligato a vivere, ma che non vedi l'ora che finiscano perché ti svuotano di ogni energia. Story 33. When I started high school, I made a friend during lunch. This girl insisted that we were sisters. I started dating a boy who became part of my 6-person friend group. At first, he was sweet and texted me every morning and night, but then he suddenly stopped. He would not text me unless I did first, which I did not like. One day, before class, I was talking to him when the girl came up and they started flirting in front of me. I was really mad but did not say anything. I only told my best friend, not the girl mentioned. After that, he became very touchy, even though I told him I did not like that. I also noticed he talked more to the other girl than to me. Finally, I broke up with him. The girl acted like I was wrong, stopped being my friend, and lost others as well. Later, she spoke badly about me to anyone she could. However, she did not like it when I told others her rice purity test score was 24. Contact me if you want more details. Story 34. I worked for a transportation company for 3.5 years. One day, I was removed from the system we use all day at work, which tells us where and what time to show up. My supervisor would not answer any phone calls at the office or on her cell phone. I contacted her boss, and he gave me an elaborate explanation that he no longer worked there. He said he was working in the country illegally and did not want me to put his name on any paperwork I had to file with the state to collect unemployment and receive the back pay they still owed me. I put his name on everything, and I received the money very quickly with no issues collecting unemployment. Story 35. As a mental health survivor, the worst experience is working with someone who denies the condition, saying things like, just cheer up, snap out of it, or what do you have to be depressed about? Then he had a mental breakdown, and of course it was worse than anyone else's. He then went to the extreme and said, "You're not depressed, you don't know what it's like," or "I've got it worse than you," as if it were a contest. I have always been open to talking to people about mental health and seeing if my experience can help them. However, this person was unkind and made every effort to make others feel insignificant. He even gossiped behind others' backs about people who may or may not have mental illness, according to his opinion. When word got around, he would have emotional outbursts and call in sick. That was the best time. He would be off for about 6 months, and we would all have peace. Story 36. My bipolar mother sat me down the night before I was starting high school in a new city and told me that she was going to commit suicide. She did not. Story 37. Being groomed by a 26-year-old when I was 16. I cannot even tell you how devastated I was for several years. Story 38. My last relationship lasted 2.5 years. She was emotionally abusive and manipulative, sometimes forcing me into sex when I did not want it. She was extremely unstable and dumped her problems on me daily until I could no longer handle my own emotions, only hers. I am still healing slowly but occasionally struggle with accepting that I deserve good things. Story 39. Not me coming to chat about accidentally mustard gassing myself in my childhood bathroom or the potential chemical radiation scare I once had in a junkyard. Story 40. Back in the 1990s, a narcissistic man in my study abroad program tried to claim he was human immunodeficiency virus positive when people stopped paying attention to him. I confronted him, which caused a lot of drama. Story 41. Opening up to an old psychiatrist who is now on television and known for toxic behavior about childhood trauma as an adult, and having him stop me in the middle of talking to say we would discuss a certain trauma next time. 5 feet in front of me, he adjusted his penis through his tan dockers. I reported him, and he was fired from that location and banned from providing mental health treatment in that county. He is now a private psychiatrist and reality star. He was found to have behaved this way in front of others who, like me, were initially stunned and reluctant to report it due to their trauma. Story 42. Being in a punk band for 4.5 years with 3 other drunk, egotistical people. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Story 43. Booked a hotel for 7 days and had this girl come over. We were intimate and I touched her. Afterwards, I smelled my hands, and they smelled terrible, like a dead animal, even in my private area. I drove to work and never returned to the hotel, letting her spend the 7 days alone with her friend. Took months for me to recover. Story 44. It's a toss-up between my best friend of 6 years yelling words like whore, bitch, and stupid bitch in my face while backing me into a corner. The same person also raped me. So, it's a toss-up between him and then being diagnosed with a chronic illness that left me bedridden for close to 6 months, unable to work, and not knowing if I would ever be okay again. I also dated a different man who is now dead from an overdose. His roommate almost killed our kitten while having a psychotic break from methamphetamine. The kitten was doused in bleach and pinned under the couch when I got home. For reference, I am a normal person from the suburbs, a registered nurse, and a homeowner. How I found myself in these situations. It could happen to anyone. Story 45. Current job. We have 4 chief executive officers for each engineer. No exaggeration. They are every bit as bad as you would expect, but I do work from home a lot and earn well at the end of the day. Awful as it is at times, very fortunate as things are right now and appreciating it to the fullest. Story 46. My first office job was at a small hotel call center. The whole place was a popularity contest between the boss and 4 managers. Anyone who was not a sycophant, smiled constantly, and obeyed every order without question or complaint was treated very poorly. They were also a close-knit group of friends the boss had promoted to keep his friends employed. In other words, they had no idea how to do their jobs. Adding to this was a culture of racism, homophobia, and human resources that was always on the side of management. It was the worst place I have ever worked. I walked out mid-call during a 2-hour complaint I was not trained to handle, but management refused to intervene. Nowadays, I laugh when I remember staff members screaming and demanding that I return to finish the call. A week later, I received a call to discuss my actions and position in the company. This was a patronizing meeting between myself, human resources, and my manager, ending in them firing me and insisting I sign a black sheet of paper, which I assume was to document my resignation on a bunch of waivers. I told them to leave me alone. Story 47. When my ex-girlfriend of 3 months classified our dating timeline as when I stopped sleeping with other guys to when I started sleeping with other guys, it overlapped a good month before our relationship ended. She said, "I thought you knew?" Story 48. 1 second I'm tearing down the road in the van, heart pounding, tires shrieking, and the next, boom, I've lost control. That factory wall just came out of nowhere. We crashed straight through it, metal shrieking, glass shattering, and then everything turned green. I didn't fall out, I poured out, into it, into that huge open tank of something thick and smoking, bubbling like a witch's cauldron, reeking like burning rubber, rotting meat, and death. The pain doesn't hit all at once. First it's cold, then hot, then it's everything. My skin's on fire, but it's also melting. My hands, oh God, my hands, they don't even look like hands anymore. They're dripping. My fingers, I can see bone. The sludge is in my eyes, in my mouth. It's eating me alive from the inside out. I stumble out of it, gasping, slipping on myself. My clothes are melting off. My face, I can feel it sagging. I can see my reflection in the broken chrome of a pipe, and I'm not even human anymore. I'm a walking, screaming corpse. I scream for help, or maybe I just make noise, something broken and animalistic. I see Clarence. Thank God, Clarence. But he takes one look at me and recoils like I'm radioactive. Maybe I am. I stagger into the road, blind, weeping acid tears, and then I see the lights, the car. I try to wave, but it's too fast, too late. And then it hits me, metal against melting flesh. There's a pop, a splatter, and that's it. No more me, just a puddle. Story 49. My ex was using me to scam non-profit organizations without my knowledge. I never asked for any money from these organizations. I would always ask, "Why do your friends seem to hate me so much?" It turns out she was using my situation to scam nonprofits without my knowledge. Not only did my ex ruin my reputation, but I also never saw any of that money. My ex had a shopping addiction and still lives in the neighborhood, pretending to be wealthy. Story 50. I had a 2-time ex who didn't want to be in a relationship with me after getting back together. I broke up with him. He was very adamant about just being friends. We hung out every so often, watched movies, played games, whatever. I fell asleep during a movie once by accident. I woke up and he was masturbating to me. He threatened to call the police on me and said that me saying things like that would get me put in jail. He insisted that it didn't happen, that I was crazy, and that he better never hear those things come out of my mouth or else. That type of thing. What gets me is that this was just the one time he got caught. All the long bathroom breaks, the other times I had drifted off a bit. I am a sleepy person and worked a lot back then. I still struggle to feel safe being alone with someone without looking over my shoulder. Story 51. Having someone I have been talking to on a dating application playing mind games by pretending to be interested when in fact she is not. Just simply say you are not interested. There are many signs that you are not interested in me. I always texted first. I started the 2 phone calls we had. You never text me asking how I am doing. Story 52. Being married to a person who is emotionally unresponsive and disconnected from the world, only concerned with himself. I experienced deep pain trying to help him through life. Story 53. My mom and sister constantly asked me why I was filled with hate and seething anger in their voices. I was 5 years old. For context, I was not a child who destroyed things or caused problems. Hate was the strongest word I knew for disliking something. So I often said, I hate mushrooms, I hate this song, or I hate doing yard work. However, it was not like I was trying to harm the world. Story 54. My first marriage was to a man who, not kidding, considered me to be his property once we were married. I thought I knew him and believed we were in love. No, both assumptions were wrong. What I had seen was merely dating behavior, and the reality was downright scary. Story 55. Mistreatment at work and then losing my job after 14 months. I had worked there for 2 years already and had a good situation until one person who did not like me. I had plenty of evidence and continued working while feeling very bad. I was naive in thinking that human resources would help me. It left me with trauma and affected my entire family. Story 56. Getting to know and live with my roommate's ex-partner was difficult. They were a narcissistic abuser who used us for free food, housing, and car rides. The experience was the most toxic relationship I have ever faced. It ended with a suicide attempt in my bathroom that I had to clean up, being stuck in a lease together for a difficult couple of months, and then taking them to court over money owed. I won the case. Story 57. I was being stalked and harassed by a neighboring business employee. He used every form of manipulation in the book. I was highly aware of it, so I never fell for anything, but it was crazy watching it all play out. I was in disbelief the entire time. It was like having someone do something right in front of me and then turn around and tell a completely different story with absolute certainty. It was a complete mind game, but I did not fall for any of it. Another guy did the same thing to me when I was in high school. I did not fall for it then either, but I ignored it for too long. I have never been in a relationship before, and honestly, these interactions have made me very uneasy around many men. I know not all men are like this, but it seems far too common nowadays and is strangely treated as normal. Story 58. Ironically, just trying to discuss something on social media. As soon as the socially conscious group arrives, nuanced conversation goes out of the window. But at least they get to signal virtue to each other. Story 59. Hilton Car Supermarket Milton Keynes. Customer service is an absolute disgrace, especially Jared Hopkins from Uxbridge. Story 60. My mom took care of a friend's children, but the friend stole a computer and a camera that contained our only pet pictures, and then stopped communicating with us. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.